why don't we just kind of start in the beginning? Why don't we start right at the beginning of the Bible? Because a lot of people are like, well, they become a Christian, the first thing they do is say, read the book of John. You ever hear that? They say, read the book of John first, or then they'll say, read the book of Romans, and they make you jump around all over the place. When I was in school and I read like Huckleberry Finn, right? I didn't like start like while they're going down the river, right? I started at the beginning because I wanted to know the context of what's going on. You're reading this book and you're getting kind of confused about all the stuff that's going on there if you don't have some context. All right, this book, the book of Genesis, the way to get started, it's a really controversial book. Okay, I don't know if you knew that. You might not think, you're like, oh, it's just nothing. It's really controversial. There is a lot of argument, a lot of debate within the scientific community and outside of it, with just Christians in general, even within the Christian church. There's all kinds of interpretations and all kinds of debate and controversy around this book. So if you're into controversy, this is the book for you. Okay, if you like that, if you like watching TV shows about controversy, this is it. This is a great book to read. Now, there's a lot of Christians. My mom actually goes to a church. No, she doesn't go to the church. She's got a friend goes to this church, and I've talked to them before. They don't study the Old Testament at all. Have you heard of that before? They don't study the Old Testament. And they say, I say, why don't you study the Old Testament? And they say, well, we don't study it because we believe in Jesus. You know, we're hardcore Jesus people, right? And we believe in Jesus, and so we read the New Testament because Jesus is in the New Testament, right? And I get that. Jesus is in the New Testament. Here's the problem with that theology. Okay, the problem with that theology is that Jesus is in the Old Testament too. He's all over the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, the biggest beef Jesus has with people when he was walking on earth was with the Pharisees who didn't think that the Old Testament was about him. Okay? They didn't think that the book of Moses was about Jesus. They thought it was about something else. The Old Testament is splattered with Jesus all over. All the history, all of it, it all teaches us about Jesus. So if you're only reading the New Testament, you're missing out on most of what the Bible has to say about Jesus. Because Jesus is all over the place in that book. It says in John 5:31-47, Moses testifies about Jesus. He says, it's Moses that testifies about me. Where's Moses at? Old Testament. Okay? Now, there's another controversy around this, and that's who wrote this book. You think, well, who wrote this book of Moses? The Pentateuch is the first 5 books of Moses. I'm giving you just a little bit of history here. And if you go to Bible college, or if you go to seminary, or you read like one of those fancy commentaries, right, and you read all about it, what you're going to find out is that they're going to tell you that the books of the Pentateuch were written by a number of sources. They call it the documentary hypothesis, is what they call it. And there's the J source, and there's this source, and they're all teaching. And when I was at Wheaton, they taught us that. I learned that even there. Here's the problem. Jesus said it was written by Moses. Okay? So as a general rule, when I have to believe Professor What's-His-Face versus Jesus, and I have to decide who I'm going to believe, I'm thinking, this guy's really smart. He went to college a long time, but this is God, right? So as a general rule, when I have to decide that, I go, this is God. This guy, Jesus, he's smart as a tack, that guy is, right? I think I'm going to go with him because he knows. He was there when the book was written. All right, so I go with Jesus. And if anybody asks you who wrote the book of Moses, who wrote the book of Genesis, it was Moses, right? It wasn't a bunch of sources. All right, so that'll get me in trouble with every professor I ever had. All right, the events of this book actually cover right around 2,400 years, and that's more than all the rest of the Bible combined. Okay, there's a whole lot of history here, and this book isn't primarily about people like Abraham and Jacob and Esau and Adam, and that's not really what the book of Genesis is about. Ultimately, it's about God, and what I want you to get this morning is that this book is not just about God, but about God and how much He loves you and me. He is going to be preparing this earth for you and I today. As He goes through creation, He's getting it ready for you and I. Why? Because He loves us. Okay? That's going to be our main point this morning. Okay? It's not a science book either. Some people read this book and they're going, I want to find out how the world was created. And from a scientific point of view, it's not a science book. It's a theology book. Right? Now, that doesn't mean it's not true. And when there's controversy and when there's conflict, we have to work through that. But ultimately, we believe that this book is our final authority on faith and on practice. And we know that this book actually does correspond with the realities of our world because it's true. Something's either true or it's not true. Okay? And this book was written about 1,400 years before Jesus was here. And it was written for about 1 million Jewish people wandering around in a desert after they'd been freed from 400 years of Egyptian captivity. Okay, so that's who the book is written to. That's going to be really important that we know who it's written to because they're living in a wasteland. They're living in a desert. They're living in a place that's uninhabitable by people unless God provides water and God provides food, right? So it's uninhabitable, okay? So are you ready? You excited to study Genesis? I hope so. You should be. If you got a Bible, you should open it up because it's time to study the Bible. Not everybody at one time. All right. I got my Bible open. Here's what it says. We'll throw some stuff up on the screen for you, and you can follow along. It says, in the beginning, this is on page 1, by the way. Page 1, chapter 1. If you're trying to figure out where Genesis 1 is, it's at the very beginning. Page 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Okay. Now, God created the heavens and the earth. What does that mean? That if you go to a Mormon church, they're going to tell you that it was created from matter that already existed. Okay? That there was matter, right? Because matter can neither be created nor destroyed if you went to science class, right? So it always existed. The reality, though, according to what we're reading here, and I know this from the Hebrew word that's involved here, is that he created it out of nothing. Nothing existed. So before him, and we also find this in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3, we're going to find out that it says, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Okay? So out of nothing, it's a Latin word, ex nihilo, okay? Which means out of nothing. God had nothing to start with, no material to start with, and he made the world. He created the world. He created it. He used the word that's used here is a word called bara. It's a Hebrew word for create. Okay, so let me give you an example. There's two different words here that are used in here for create. There's create, which is bara, and there's made, which is asa. Okay, let me explain to you what those are. And so I went down to Farm and Fleet. You go to Farm and Fleet very often? I went down to Farm and Fleet. I've never been to Farm and Fleet until I moved here. And now Farm and Fleet is my next best friend. And I went to Farm and Fleet, and I'm walking down, and I'm going down the aisle, and all of a sudden I see these big tubes, and I go, oh, those would be great to baptize people in, right? They're these big, huge containers, right? I guess for feeding animals. I don't know what they are. But I look in and I'm like, oh, what's in there? And I look in and there's a chicken. And I was like, oh, crap, a chicken. I gotta get a chicken. Julie won't let me get one. And then I said, you got to have more than one chicken. You got to buy them in groups. And I thought, oh, but these chickens were brand new. They had been newly created chickens. They were brand new. They were only maybe a couple days old, right? And I could take them, and I was like, yeah, a chicken. And so I was ready to have my chicken and eat it too. But I was going to get the chicken, but that's bara. It was brand new. It had never existed before. This particular chicken, didn't exist 5 days ago. And now it exists because it was created. It was the first time. Then on Wednesday, I went to Lisa's place. Okay? And when I went to Lisa's place, you know what they had for lunch there? Chicken. Right. And you know what Lisa did? She made chicken. She made chicken. Now, she didn't create a chicken out of nothing. She didn't create it for the first time, but she prepared chicken. She got it ready for use so that I could eat it and I could be satisfied, which I didn't eat it because it looked too much food, looked like too much. So I had a double cheeseburger with my good friend Nathan over here, but we should have had the chicken because everybody was talking about the chicken. But the difference is that creating, originally he creates the world, he creates the earth, and then that's bara, and then he's going to asa, he's going to prepare the earth. He's getting it ready. You're going to find that in most days of creation, he doesn't make anything. If you read it, he doesn't make stuff several of the days. He separates stuff. Something exists, and he separates it, and then he'll separate this, and then he'll put this together, and he's moving things. There's water, and then he takes water, and he moves water away, and now there's land that's there, and there's stuff that already existed, but he's moving things. Okay? So what we find is ultimately what I care about is that it doesn't matter how far you go back, okay? God created. There's all kinds of theories. Some people are going to say the earth is 1 million years old, 10 million years old. Some people are going to say it's 6,000 years old. What I care about, because I wasn't there, all right? I've got a good testimony here of how this laid out, and I'm going to explain to you what I think happened. And I believe in 7 literal days, okay? I'll tell you that. I believe in 7 literal days. I believe they were in succession, right? That it wasn't like day 1 and then he waited for a long time and said, all right, let's have another day. Now that it took me so long to create the world, right? He goes on to the next thing. So I believe that, but we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Ultimately, what I care about us understanding is that God created it. If you go back far enough, whether it's 6,000 years or 10,000 years, you have to confront the one who made it. You have to confront God who made the world, okay? He created this thing, and he created us. No matter how far you go back. That's ultimately where I think we can all agree. And what we find here, if we look at it, it says, and the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep. It was formless. Okay? So God is creating here. He creates something, and we don't know how he created it or when he created it. It just says he created it, and it's this big blob of water is what it looks like, and there's no light. And it's formless, it's void, it's uninhabitable. You can't inhabit this place. It's not prepared for people yet. He made this thing, and what I actually believe, and you can disagree with me, that's okay on this, but I believe that he creates this thing first. And he doesn't start the actual days of creation until we get to verse 3. Okay? But that he creates it, it's there, it's without form and void. You say, Dustin, why would you think that? Well, when I look at the book of Revelation, in Revelation, you know what, let's go to Revelation, because I get a little bit distracted. Revelation 12, it says this. It says, then the war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil and Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. My question has always been, when did that happen? When did Satan get thrown to earth? Was it like after day 1? Was it after Adam and Eve were here? Because it sure seems like the devil was there before Adam and Eve were there. And that they had been there a while. Him and the demons. Right? And so my thought, and like I said, you can disagree with me, there's all kinds of different views on this, but mine is that God created the heavens and the earth, and it was kind of a garbage dump. It was kind of not anything special. It wasn't inhabitable by people, but he threw the angels and he threw Satan there, and they're inhabiting this place, and now it's time for him to prepare it for people. Asa. He's going to prepare it like you prepare chicken, or like you make your bed, or like he's going to get it ready for people, okay? And I think that's what's happening as we look at the first day. And he's hovering over the deep. It goes to verse 3. Let's take a look at verse 3 together. It says, and God said, let there be a vault between the waters. Some versions say, let there be an expanse, okay? It doesn't matter which one you say. It says, let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the vault and separated water under the vault from water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening and there was morning. Hey, I skipped a verse. Everybody's looking at me saying, "What, Dustin, get with it." Here, let there be light. First, let's start on Sunday, not Monday. Okay, let's start on Sunday. So the first day is Sunday. A lot of great things happen on Sunday. Jesus rose from the grave. We're here on Sunday. First day of creation, Sunday. It says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Why does Pastor Dustin say that it's 24-hour periods? Why does he say that? Because it was evening and it was morning the first day. Okay? Why a lot of people say that they were longer than that is I guess they don't think God is able to create or do these things within one day, and they're like, boy, must have been really tough for him. So I don't think that's the case. I think that God is able to do this in 24-hour days, and he tells us he does right here. Why does he create light? There was no light necessary before. There didn't have to be light before, because there didn't have to be plants. There didn't have to be that. But God is getting ready to make his most special and most beloved thing he'll ever make, and that's you and me. He's excited to make us, and so he is pulling out all the stops to make things ever so perfect, so that when he creates people, it's just, right? It's just perfect. He's excited about that. And that's the first day. The first day, all he does is he separates light from darkness. And so there's light and there's darkness, and he separates it. It goes on to, what's the next day of the week? Sunday, and then what? You guys are great theologians. I'm loving this. We are right on track. You and I, we can start our own seminary together. Here we go. Chapter 3, verse 6. It says this. And God said, let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. This sounds really familiar from just a couple minutes ago. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it, and it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. Okay, so this is not super complicated. There was all this water, and God said, I want there to be a sky, right? Because we need a sky if we're people. So let's have a sky, right? Is that good, EJ? Let's have a sky. And so he takes water and he divides up water that's on the ground and he puts some water up in the sky. What's that? That's called clouds, right? That's our atmosphere. And what's in between it? That's called sky. This isn't really hard, right? We can figure that out. We don't have to do too much. Here's the funny thing about this one, though. You'll notice something's missing on Monday. Look at it. Look at it. Something's missing on Monday that's on the other days, except for the last day. It doesn't say anything's good on Monday. Isn't that hilarious? You don't think that's funny? I think that's pretty funny. I wake up a lot of Mondays and I say, this day is horrible. I do not want to get up today. It's Monday, right? It's not good. That's biblical. Every time when you say, I don't want to do it, I'm not getting up, that's a totally biblical thing, right? Having Monday is a bad day. Good things happen here, but it is kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny. I don't know. All right. You don't have to laugh. That's all right. Verse 9, and God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. See, Tuesday, some good stuff's happening on Tuesday, right? We got something good. What did he do? Did he make land? No. He separated water. He took water and he moved it over here. Why? Because he's preparing it for us. Why? Because we're going to live on land. Why? Because we don't have gills. He wants us to live on land. We can do more on land. Land is where he wants us to be. And so what does he do? He's preparing land for us. And he'd already made at the very beginning the heavens and the earth. He's got the earth. It's a big ball of water. It's not inhabitable by people. He's making it inhabitable for people. And so he takes water and he moves it. And he gathers it into seas. And so now all of a sudden, what was there before, land, is now visible. Okay? Asa. He's preparing it for people. Why? Because he loves us. Because he loves us. And it goes on and it says, this is great. It says, and God said, let the land produce vegetation. Now we're in farmland here. This is good. I'm preaching to the choir on this one. It says, let the land produce vegetation. It doesn't say God produced vegetation. It's that God is in a very kind of impersonal way creating vegetation. And why would he create vegetation? For us. Why? Because he loves us. He loves us. We're going to get this eventually. He's making vegetation because this is going to be our food until after the ark, right? This is going to be our food, and he's preparing this for us. He's preparing green stuff. And he makes it, watch what it says here. This is important. Seed-bearing plants and trees in the land that bear fruit with seeds in it. Do you like watermelon? That's this day. That's Tuesday. Tuesday is watermelon day. He created watermelons on Tuesday. Do you like Brussels sprouts? No? I do. I am pro Brussels sprout. That's my position is I am pro Brussels. I love Brussels sprouts, man. Julie makes them. Oh, man. Yeah, well, just a second. I love those Brussels sprouts. Fruit. Do you like fruit? You like berries? You like strawberries? She had a cheesecake last night for her birthday. Oh, man. She had, you talked to her about that. It had all kinds of, what was it, strawberry on it? Oh, yeah. She loves strawberry. That's all Tuesday, right? And here's what it says. It says he created them according to their kind and their seed bearing. Why is that important? because I mean, I'm no farmer, but I do know this, that it's a lot easier to farm if you put a seed in the ground that's a corn seed and corn comes up, right? It's like way worse if we would go to the bank. I'd take my son to the bank, and we would go in there, and he would get a dum-dum. You know what dum-dum is? The little suckers right at the bank. And they had the mystery dum-dum, and you don't know what you're getting. And he'd always get the mystery dum-dum. I'm like, why do you want that? Why? You want to know what you're getting, right? So you don't want to plant a corn seed in and get like a giraffe, right? You want to plant a corn seed and get a corn to come up, right? You want to plant potatoes and have potatoes go. You want to plant strawberries and You want to plant something. Why? He's ordering things. He's making things orderly. Why? Because he loves us. He's preparing this for us because he is crazy in love with us, and he's getting this thing ready for you and I. Okay? That's what's going on. Watch what it says. It says, then every... where did I go? The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to the kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, the third day. Look at that. We're already to the third day. That's pretty incredible. We are just flying through this thing. This is fantastic. Now we get to Wednesday. Do you like Wednesday? Hump day? That's what they call it. Wednesday. We get Wednesday in chapter 14. It says, and God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night. And let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. This sounds kind of weird in creation, doesn't it? A little bit, separate for sacred time, and let the lights in the vault of the sky, let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day. What would that be? Boy, we are right on today. We are right on. And so we got that one, and the lesser light to govern the night. What would that be? That'd be the moon, right? Yeah, you're sharp as a tack. God set... it says he also made the stars. Those are good, right? They light up. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day. Now, this verse probably freaked you out, didn't it? Because you're like, oh my goodness. He created the sun on Wednesday, but he created light on the first day. So what in the world happened? How could there possibly be light? There can't be light on the first day, on Saturday, but there's no sun and there's no moon until Wednesday. Oh my goodness, this is just horrible. I give up the whole thing. Right? No, that's not what happened. Did God create light on the first day? Yes. Are there things that have light in them that aren't the sun? Right? Like I went in the garage yesterday and I put some LEDs in there, and I'm trying to get it. And I put them, and I turned the light switch on, and the sun didn't pop up in my garage, right? Because that's the only source of light, right? You're like, well, what about the vegetation the day before? If there's no sun, those ain't going to live, because I farm. I know you got to have sunlight in order for things to grow, right? There was light. What God is doing is he's preparing the earth and he's preparing the universe for us. Why? It's very specific that he's trying to make order for us so that we can have a day, so that I can wake up and say, yes, it's my wife's birthday. I know that because there's a sun and there's a moon and those things. So what God did on this day is he didn't really make light again. What he did is he took the light he created on day one and he assigned it and put it with the sun, the moon, and with these things. He attached them to things because right now what he's doing on Wednesday is ordering things to make it so that it's effectual for us. Why was he making it effectual for us? So that we can understand days. I knew to come to church today because there's a sun. The light is attached to the sun. I know when Easter is because the moon is up there, right? And it even talks about sacred days here. That we're going to know when special days are, right? Like when my anniversary is. And I do know when my anniversary is, right? I've got it written down and it's in a safe, right? I know exactly where that's at. And one of these days I'm supposed to check that safe and make sure that I know exactly when that is. But that's what's happening on this day. He's assigning light to the days. He did make something. He made a sun. He made the moon. He created those out of nothing, right? But understand, that's what that's about. So here we go. And notice this. This is actually also interesting. When he creates something on day one, he does something with what he did on on day 1 on day 4. Then he creates something on day 2, and he does something with that on day 5 to prepare it. And then day 3 comes, and he does something with that and prepares it on day 6. Okay? Read it. Go home and read that and get excited about it. You'll see it. It's really cool. God is making stuff, and then he is separating it and preparing it for us. It's really cool. What day is it now? We just got done with Wednesday. Now it's Thursday. All right? We're only going to go, I think, one more day here. We're not going to take too many days. Thursday, verse 20 to 23. Here's what it says. And God said, let the water teem with living creatures. Remember on day 2, there was water? Here's what happens. Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So that's cool. We used to see lots of birds in Seattle that would be kind of flying, seagulls and stuff, and they poop a lot. I don't know if you knew that. All over. And crows too, man. We had to wash the car a lot out there. We have not had that problem here. That's good. But it says here, let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the water teems, and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. So again, a bird isn't going to give birth to an elephant. Okay? That's really helpful. And my wife isn't going to give birth to an elephant, which she's really happy about. Right? People give birth to people. Birds, why? It's orderly. We want to know what's going on here. God is preparing this for us. It says, according to their kinds, and God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 5th day. This is great. Now he's making other kinds of animals, and he creates. He doesn't prepare. He's creating here. Okay, he's creating something that didn't exist before. This is important. He's making this. This is good. This is good for us. It says, and God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, and livestock, and creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. So now he's creating livestock. Do any of you have cows? So you've got cows. Anybody? You're the only one with cows? You're a popular guy, right? Because you've got all the cows. Livestock. So he creates a couple different things. He creates what's called, like, the livestock would be domesticated animals, in a sense. These are animals that are kind of like beasts of burden, and we use them for stuff, and they're tame, right? There's also wild beasts, right? Wild beasts, that sounds scary, like something we'd see in a really bad movie. The wild beasts, those are undomesticated kind of animals, right? So you don't go up and pet those, right? Because they'll bite you. And then there are what they call creepy things. That's great, right? Creepy things. That's basically all the little things that scurry on the ground. That'd be like little what are those, lizards? Right? Lizards. They're kind of scary. Snakes? Oh, snakes. We don't want them. I'm anti-snake. I do not like snakes. I shouldn't have told you that. I don't like snakes. And snakes would be in that category. He creates these things, and he makes them all. And here's what it says. God made the wild animals according to the kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Okay, so that's where we're going to stop. That's where we're going to stop. There's the behemoth. That's the cattle. They're kind of dumb. They're brutes. That's what they call them. There's creepy things. That would be like reptiles. And then there's beasts of the earth. Land, though, is now really going to be a really important part the rest of this series as we talk about it. Land is kind of important here, too. You want to buy a lot of land. My cousins own like a ton of land in Iowa, and it's important. Over in the Middle East, land is a huge deal, having land. And when God provides land, God's going to give land to people. Why? Because he's going to bless them. He's going to pick some people, he's going to bless them, and he's going to give them land. Land is going to be crucial for us as we kind of go through the rest of this series. But what I want you to get this morning, and no big theological thing that's going to change your life probably this morning, unless it's this, that what God does in the very first chapter of the Bible is he is basically letting you know, I am getting this thing ready for people. I'm getting it ready. And you say, why would he do that? Because God, now I have my own theories, and we could talk about this maybe in a Bible study or something as to why the devil is on earth at this particular time, and then he creates people and what that's all about. There's some great theory about that, and that's a fun topic. That'd be a great small group kind of topic to really kind of dive into sometime. But the whole point is that he's doing this because he's creating people and he's preparing it for them because he loves them. It's not just this whimsical thing that he's just creating the earth because he's got nothing better to do. He's creating it. This whole book is about his relationship with you and I. That's what this book is about. It's this relationship with you and I. And so it's powerful. I'll tell you something else about this book in closing, because we're going to dive into this, and I hope that you'll come back, but I need to warn you a little bit about this book. I didn't read this book until I was about 14 years old. When you're 14 years old, you're thinking about all kinds of weird kind of stuff when you're 14 years old, and I read this book, and this thing's rated R. I don't know if you read it. If you haven't read this book, I don't know if you've read it. If you haven't read this book, it is rated R. There's all kinds of stuff in here that we're going to tackle over the next several weeks. There's rape in this book. There's incest. There's sometimes both. There's murder. There's a worldwide genocide that happens in this book. And the way we describe it to our children is we actually decorate we think it's about animals. It's not about animals. It's about God destroying the earth, and yet we paint our kids' nurseries from the story of God destroying everybody, right? That's crazy. Rated R. There's a lot of stuff in here, and so you got to come prepared for like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that was in there. There's some great things coming. I hope you'll come back next week as we study this and we get into when God is going to create people. He's going to create people here, and his treasured possession. And it's going to be fantastic. So I hope you'll come back. What we're going to do now is I want to pray and ask God just to allow this to sink into us and to change us. God, in Jesus' name, I'm asking that you would allow this word that we had this morning, God, to just change us, to challenge us. We've heard your word. And now what we want is for you to allow that word to come in by the power of the Holy Spirit and transform us and change us. God, I pray that as we go through our day, God, that we will remember things that we heard today and that it will affect us and we'll go, what about that? What about this? How does this help me to know Jesus more? How does this help me to know God more? How does this help me to serve you more? How does this help me to be more devoted to you? God, challenge us through the power of your word. God, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.